What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now today we are talking about the Tricolate brewer. Yes, I know, another brewer. Do we need this? Well, we're about to find out. So to help you understand whether or not this is for you or if it should even exist, I'll be putting it to the test and explaining the differences that this has to a typical manual brewer like a V60 or a Chemex. Now the biggest difference is, well, the flat base. So compared to your typical V60, what we call this is a non-bypass brewer. So instead of the portion of the water being able to make it around the coffee bed like it does in a V60 or your Chemex, it obeys the laws of gravity, but having to pass through the bed of coffee completely because there's no other way around other than down. And what does this do exactly? Well, to start with, it removes a very large issue: skill. If you're new to brewing coffee or you don't have a very expensive temperature variable kettle, this brew allows you to make coffee just the way it was designed, which is boiling hot water in no particular rate and let the clever design do the work for you. Probably the smartest part of this device would be the shower head itself, which is made up of channels and holes spread around the area in such a way that creates a perfect and even flow and distribution. No matter where you put the water, you've got the smaller holes in the middle and then larger holes on the outside. So in a sense, if you pour the water straight in the middle, it actually forces the water to spread out into the larger holes. Quite clever. So it makes coffee easily, which is great. What's the downside? Well, so far the only negative that I've found in comparison would be that it takes a little bit longer to brew, but I'll show you why. So grab your device, pop it onto a server of some sort, chuck a filter in there. That looks kind of cool. Grab some water off the boil, just chuck it on there. And now we want to make sure that the filter is all the way down. So if you want to grab a back of a spoon, just to push the edges down to make sure. For this recipe, we're using 15 grams of coffee, and it is ground fairly fine, not quite espresso fine, but we do need to get it pretty close. Using a WDT, it'll help you get this coffee nice and flat all the way around. You can remove it just to help. Getting it flat is going to help with a nice even extraction. This isn't the perfect WDT for it because it's fairly short, but that's not bad. That will do the trick. So we pop the top of our device on, and then we pour in about 30 to 40 grams of bloom water. And then wait until the 30-second mark, and then we can give it a bit of a swirl. So grab the whole device, give it a good swirl. That's just going to help a little bit of agitation, and we're not going to do too much of that because this type of brewer does not like it. So then we're going to pour in the rest of our water, and we're going to finish at a weight of, wait for it, 330 ml of water. That's right. This guy has a brew ratio of 22 to 1, which is enormous. Which is part of the play as to why it takes so long. 333, we're bang on. Now this brew is going to take about 5 to 6 minutes, depending on how fine you have ground. If you get it right, you probably want it around that 5-minute mark. You can give it a bit of a swirl. So while this is brewing, we're going to have a chat. Now, the biggest question that a lot of people ask me when I'm making this at the cafe or showing them the device is, does it work? You bet your ass it does. I've used this side by side with a V60 with super high quality papers, great kettle, and a recipe, and a pouring method that has taken a lot of practice to perfect. Now this thing just allows me to dump water in with a Kmart kettle and walk away, which is pretty phenomenal because the coffee it produces it's up there. It's pretty mind-blowing, to be honest, how good this thing makes the coffee for you. Is it perfect? No. If you don't pay attention when you're settling that filter, making sure that it is all the way down, all the way around the edges, you will end up with some bypass water. So just take an extra 2 seconds to make sure it's really on there before you drop your coffee in. Now, with the ratio being so large in comparison, this gives you a much higher yield to a typical pour over, without sacrificing the taste or having to use more beans as well. So not only does it produce a good coffee, but it also gives you more of it. And also, when you have that 10 or 12 grams of beans left at the end of a bag, you can simply adjust your water volume to suit the ratio, and it makes the exact same coffee because you're not relying on bypass water in your non-metric calculations. I know a lot of big words, but you can't really do that with a V60. You can go down to 10 grams of coffee in a pour over, but to get that ratio right and taking in the bypass water into account, it's very difficult to replicate a typical 15 gram coffee. So this is a coffee that I've had as a V60 quite a few times. I haven't had it as a Tricolate just yet. You're watching live reaction, guys. Oh, like a bright plum. This is actually producing an even better cup than the coffee I made earlier using a V60 and my expensive kettle. I only use the expensive kettle pouring water in because that's all I had. You can literally just use boiling water from a jug and pour it on top. I will show you the top of this again to really give you an idea as to how this works. It's really, really simple. The smaller holes in the middle, like I was saying earlier, forces the water to the outsides, creating that perfect distribution. I'll give you a bit of a close-up on something that I had filmed just to show people how it works. It's very, very clever. So if you watch closely at the bottom of this, I'm pouring water way faster than you would pour into a typical V60, and no matter where I put the water, it doesn't really affect the flow of the water coming out the bottom. So very clever, very, very impressive. This is probably the magic within the Tricolate. So if you have one of these and you love it, or if you hate it, drop your recipe below. I would love to see some other great recipes. Make sure you check out the Tricolate YouTube channel as well, because they've got some really, really cool things. They've even got an almost espresso, almost. So right after subscribing to this channel, that's right, make sure you go check them out. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Have yourselves a great day and happy brewing.